Hi friends, I'm Jack Watson, full-time UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, and donut connoisseur, and today I will be your host for this Illustrator illustration challenge. If you participated in the coloring page challenge, you're going to want to have that file handy so you can try out coloring it today. If you didn't participate, no worries. You can find links in the description below this video to other challenges. We've also got a link to download your free resources to create along with us, which includes the line art I'll be working with today. So here's our file. We've got some line art on our artboard already. The artboard's our canvas. It's where everything that we're going to export is going to live. If you're working with your own file, you can just delete this and use your own work or use your own file. So I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to open up my panel so we can see what we've got going on. We've got a line art layer and we've got a fills layer. I've also got some links over here to some resources for you and these 6 little circles down here. We're going to use these circles to create a color palette in order to build our coloring page out. So I am going to switch over to one of the resources I have handy for you here, color.adobe.com. It's going to look like this. One of the ways we talk about color in Illustrator is using the language from the Munsell color theory, and that includes terms like hue, saturation, and value. So the hue means the actual color. It's what we think of. It's red, blue, green, purple. It's the color that we think of. Saturation is the vibrancy of that color. It is how intense, more saturation is more intense versus less saturation is going to be more gray tones. And then we've got value, so lighter and darker, usually on a scale of like black to white, similar to what I've got over here, dark to light. Those terms are going to be, we're going to be using them throughout this sort of stream today, so just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an overview. So on the color.adobe.com website, we can use color harmonies over here to pick colors that work well together. Monochromatic is a range of colors that are within the same hue, so all of the colors exist here in one color. So if we pick monochromatic, we can see everything is in this kind of blue range, and we can use different values and saturations within that range. If we're going to work with complementary today, complementary colors are opposite each other on the color wheel and they have good contrast, especially when we add different values and saturations. So I'm going to slide over here, and you can choose colors based on a couple of different things. If you're having a little bit of trouble and you don't know where to start when it comes to picking colors, I would recommend either picking a color for the thing that you want to highlight, the thing that you want to be your subject or your focal point, and then picking out colors that complement that focal point, or picking out colors based on what we're going to do today, the environment or the time of day or something like that. In this case, we're working with our treehouse, so I think I want to use colors that are very like greens, very like foresty colors. So I have pulled around here the corners to get a complementary color palette that's got some reds and it's got some greens in it, which can be a notoriously difficult color palette to work with, but with some adjustments I think it will work. So now that I've got some colors I like on this, I'm going to go over here and you can pick a library that you can save this color theme to. You can name it, you can tag it. We're not going to worry about any of that. We're just going to leave it all here. I've already got a library made called AI challenges that I'm just going to save this to. And once we've got it saved, we're going to go back over to Illustrator and we're going to pop open our libraries panel, which is right over here next to properties if you've got the Essentials Classic workspace loaded. So over here, we're going to see that it's already got my color theme loaded in here. I can right click on this color theme and I can say, oh no, yep, there it is, add theme to swatches. And over here in our swatches panel, it's going to load those colors in for us. If I pull this out, it'll be a little bit easier to see. And we want to work with swatches today. I really like working with swatches because we can use tints of those colors, which lets us adjust the brightness as we're working. We can use like different tints of colors, and I'll show you that in a second. So we've pulled in our colors from our library. I'm going to select the first one in this folder by just clicking on it, and I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to select the rest. Once they're all selected, I can click on this little button down here that says Swatch Options, and that's going to let me change all of my swatch types to global. We need to have global swatches in order to use tints. So I'm going to check that box. I'm going to hit OK. And you're going to see once I do that, that these little white flags, little white triangles appear in the bottom corner. So I know that I've added those as swatches, and I can adjust the tints. So I want to remind everybody that we have a live chat over here on behance.net/Adobe Live. You can chat with us and ask questions every day at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. It looks like Kevin in our chat is asking, do they stay in your swatches after you close? They do not. However, you can look into setting up a template. You'll have to dig into that, do a search. It's a little bit of a complicated setup, but you can create a template file that will let you load this content in every time. So I'm going to just drag this swatches panel off back to where it was, and it's just going to snap back into place there because we don't need to have it kind of floating. All right, so now we're ready to start coloring now that we've got our colors. Actually, no, we aren't ready to start coloring. I want to add them to my little circles down here. So we are going to add our colors down here to our circles so we have them and we can see how they look. You can see here that I haven't even added, 6 colors. I don't think we're going to need to use 6 because we're going to be working with values. And I might want to make some adjustments here. I think I want these colors to be a little bit darker, like this brown, so that the colors can have more contrast against each other and we have a little bit more values to work with. So you can edit your swatches by going back over here and double clicking on them. So I'm going to double click on this and it's going to pull up a swatch options panel. If I click on that drop down, we're going to be working with hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'm going to just kind of bring this up. I'm going to bring this down. I just want to adjust the saturation up, bring the brightness down. I'm going to check preview on so you can see what's happening. I might want to go with something that's a little bit more of like a maroon color for our tree trunk, something like that. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit lighter. Okay, that's good for that color. And then I might want to use something a little bit lighter here. If I'm thinking about the colors that I might want to add on my treehouse, I'm going to double click and I'm just going to lighten those. Just a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then we're going to darken this green a little bit. I think this green is needs to be a little bit darker. Maybe a little bit more in the blues. Okay, and maybe we'll adjust this one too, why not? So I'm just going in here and kind of like refining the color palette that I picked until I get something that I like. Alright, that's good. So now we've got our color palette, we've got our illustration here. Now this is gonna get a little bit tricky, so I'm gonna want to make some, you're gonna want to pay attention to this part. We're gonna make a copy of our line art and we're gonna put it on our fills layer. So I'm gonna select this by tapping on that little circle next to the line art. I'm gonna hit Command C. I'm gonna click on my fills layer. I'm gonna hit Command F. That's just gonna paste it on that layer. Now I'm gonna make sure that I go back into my layers panel. I'm gonna lock all of this because I don't accidentally want to work on this. It's gonna get confusing if we don't have this locked. So now we've just got our line art. And I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here. I've got my fills layer here, my line art. I've got some things grouped. I'm going to go in here and I am going to just, starting from the bottom, I'm going to hide all of this. It's not going to disappear because we've got a copy of it up here, so I'm just going to hide that. And we're just going to unhide until I get the things that I kind of want visible all at once here. So I only want the tree to start with. We don't need to add this ladder because we're not adding any fills to that. So I'm just going to delete that out. All right, now we're going to be working with a tool called Live Paint. And in order to do that, we're going to want to make sure that we've got closed shapes. We talked about how it's really helpful when you're creating a coloring page to have closed shapes. The same thing's going to apply here. Now, it doesn't have to be literally closed shapes. As long as the lines that you've created meet and form a closed shape, Live Paint is going to treat that as a closed shape. So I'm going to go back in here, and where I've got this open path here, I'm going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to click right here. I've got Smart Guides turned on again under View, Smart Guides, and I'm just going to click where this kind of shows me that I'm aligned with that, and I'm going to drag across. So now I have essentially closed that path, and that's going to come in handy when we create these fills. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to select my house here. I'm going to select the house that's not visible here. I'm going to select this guy, and I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to go to arrange and bring to front, and then we're just going to hide it. We only want to be working with this group right now. So I'm going to, with my selection tool selected, drag and select everything here. And now we're going to click on our live paint bucket. If it's not directly in your toolbar, you can click and hold down on the shape builder tool, and underneath there you're going to find the live paint bucket. So now we're going to go, and I'm going to just kind of hide my layers panel so it's a little bit easier for you to see. And I'm going to go down to my swatches. Now I can just start filling using my swatches. So I'm going to select this brown right here to start for the trunk. We're going to tap to fill. This is just telling me that there's a lot going on here and warning me that, like, if something is using a brush or using transparency, live paint might not work. I can just say, don't show me that again. It's not a concern since I don't have any of that in here. And it's just going to fill my shape just like that. You're going to see that it's adding like a basic stroke around this. We're not going to worry about that because we're going to get rid of strokes. This is just going to be our fills layer. Then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to tap on my green and I'm going to fill in the green here. We're just going to go through and we're just going to fill all of these shapes. Maybe we want to add a color to our swing there. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my layers panel, which I minimized, and we're going to click on those arrows to open it up again. We're going to click on our little eyeball to show our treehouse. Now we can zoom in here, and we can start to fill in our treehouse. We'll move this out of the way. There we go. All right, so I'm going to grab my brown again, and I could go, whoop, I got to make a live paint. Click on the live paint tool first. Then I'm going to grab my brown, and I could go through here and I could fill in these individual, hold on, let me double check something. There's something that I missed here that I want to clarify. Again, we need to make sure that these make closed paths. So I'm going to, with the direct selection tool, click on this anchor point, hold down shift and drag, and I'm going to do the same thing here. If you hold down shift with Smart Guide turned on, it's going to follow the angle. So we're just going to close these off really quickly. Okay, so now we should be in good shape to add our fills. I'm going to go to my live paint bucket here, and I'm just going to click to make a live paint group, grab my color, and I can click to fill things in. You can also click and drag, and you can fill in multiple areas at once if you got the same color. So we're going to just quickly go through here. We're going to add these little wood beams in our tree house. We're going to add a tan to the front. And maybe we'll add a red door. And we'll make this red maybe to show that it's in shadow. Alright, so now if I unhide this, now we've got all of our base fills. And this step here that I'm going to do next is super important. So be sure that you do this. So I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to select the whole group here, the whole layer. And then I'm going to go up and I'm going to go to Object. I'm going to go down to this Live Paint menu and I'm going to hit Expand. And that's going to make all of my live paint shapes into live or objects. So instead of working, now we can work with them like we would normal objects. So if we zoom in here really quickly, now we can start to think about shading. So first of all, I'm going to select those again, and I'm going to make sure I've got none on my stroke. We don't want a stroke. We can also unhide our line art layer now so we can see the line art. So Kiss My Creative says, I'm going to have a lot to catch up on. I've been watching all the videos, but I haven't started any challenges yet. There's still time. There's always time to start. All right, so I'm going to select my green, and now I'm going to show you what I mean by working with these swatches. So under color here, I've got this weird view. I'm just going to double click here to get this view here. I think if you go into the menu over there, you can get to it too. I'm going to click on the fill to bring the fill forward, so we're editing that. And we can just slide this down, and as we do that, we're going to lighten our color. So that's going to start to add some lighting, separate out these colors from each other. So that's going to be our first step. We also want to be sure that we go back in here and we can add another kind of shape here, just a circle with the ellipse tool over here, just to indicate to us like, okay, maybe this is our light source because this is the thinner line weight and this is the heavier line weight. So just bring that back again so we can make sure that we know if we need a reminder where our light is going to be hitting our tree first. So we're going to also want to bring this tree branch fill to the front of our layer stack here. So it's currently grouped in here. I'm going to drop down that. I'm going to open up my tree group, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm just going to go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. So now it's in front. This is a good thing to make a point about. So it will only bring it to the front of the group. If I want to bring it to the front of these other groups, I'm going to want to drag it out of that group and put it in front of that house. So now we've got our tree branch in front of our house. We're going to want to lighten this tree color. I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to drag this down too. So now we've got a lighter tree. Now we can start to add some shading. So there's a couple different ways that we can do this. We can go about adding shading using tints. We can use opacity changes, or we could use blending modes. So we've got this shape. We want to add a little bit of a shadow maybe underneath here. So I'm going to select with the direct selection tool my fill for this green tree. I'm going to hit Command C and Command F to paste it in front. And then I'm going to hit Command F one more time to make another copy. Now with the direct selection tool, I'm going to drag up at an angle. What I'm looking for when I'm doing this is what does the overlap of these shapes look like? This bottom area here, this shape, that's the area that I want to have my shadow be. So I want to think about the lights coming down here. What does that shadow shape between those two objects look like? And once I've kind of got that established, I'm going to go up here to Window, and I'm going to open up Pathfinder. Now that I've got Pathfinder opened up, I'm going to choose, I think it's minus front or minus back, but I think it's minus back. Nope, I was wrong. Command Z, minus front, and that's going to just leave me with those shapes along the bottom edge. If I go up here now, I can bring them up to 100% opacity or 100% tint, and that's going to show me a darker shadow. So I'm going to click on these little shapes up here and just delete them because I don't actually want them. I only want the shape down here. And you might have a little bit of a weird area here. Because this is behind my tree, I'm not too concerned about it. I can just click using the direct selection tool and pull these so that those end up being behind my tree, just like that. So we can do the same thing over here, just kind of pull this up, pull these shapes, you know, so that they kind of fill that space. There we go. Just like that. Alright, so now we've got a little bit of a shadowed edge there. We can also add a shadow to our tree. So you can go click on your tree there, your tree trunk. We're going to hit Command C, we're going to hit Command F, we're going to hit Command F again, and we can drag it across, and we can select both of those tree trunks. You can also select it from the Layers panel here. So now we've got both of them selected. And we're going to hit minus front again. So now we've got our shapes for our tree trunk shadow. We can bring that up. Maybe this time, instead of using a tint, we want to use a little bit of opacity. So you can also change the opacity up here, so we can go to like 50%, and that's going to add a little bit of a shadow without using the tints. Okay, so if we want to, we can also use shapes to draw and make shadows and highlights instead of using the existing shapes that we have. So if we wanted to add a little bit of a highlight on top of this, we would go over here and select our pen tool, and we can just kind of click and follow the general shape of our grass over here, or our hill, whatever it is. And I am only concerned, again, about what's inside of my shape there. And then I'm just going to drag around, and I'm not concerned about what's out here. I only care about what's inside. So I'm going to click on this shape again, and I'm going to hit Command C and Command F. And I'm going to select both of these. And I think this time the one that I want is intersect. Yes, so the intersection of those two paths is the shape that I want to keep. Now I'm going to go over here, and now this time, instead of using a color like this, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to pick maybe this lighter color that we have, this tan, and we can also use blending modes. So if I go over and I find my transparency window, over here your blending modes are kind of split into two different sections, or multiple sections, but the ones that we're going to talk about today are these top ones here. These three in this section up here are going to darken your artwork. These three down here are going to lighten your artwork. So you can think about it that way. Any of these three are going to darken, any of these three are going to lighten. So if I hit screen, you can see that that's going to lighten that section there. And we can bring the opacity down a little bit. And now you can see that we can start to mix colors. This now feels like it has a little bit of warm lighting to it because we've used a warmer color. So it's got a little bit of a warmer highlight to it. We could also do the same thing up here with our tree if we wanted them to match. I'm just going to very quickly, with the pen tool, draw in a shape that kind of matches the highlight that I want to have on this edge. Again, not concerned about the outside here because I'm just going to use the Pathfinder. Clicking on that tree group with the direct selection tool, Command-C, Command-F, holding down Shift, selecting that outside shape, and then I'm going to go to the intersect option here, click on that, and now we've got a highlight right there. So we've started to add some really great shading to our house, and well, not to our house yet, but to our tree and everything else. There's one other way that you can add some highlights, and this is something that I like to use for adding sharp highlights when you want a really, really strong highlight on the edge of something. We're going to go over here to our, you probably can't see that. Well, that's okay. Our stroke and fill switcher little option. So I'm going to tap on this swap fill and stroke, so we're editing the stroke this time. And Kevin's asking Control F versus Control V. Is there a difference? Yes. If you go up here to your edit menu, you can see all of the shortcuts for the different copy and paste commands. And you've got the basic cut, copy, paste, but you also have special ones like paste in front, paste in back, and paste in place. I like using paste in front because in this case we want the object to be kind of like in front so it's easy to drag it out. If you wanted to though, you could use paste in place or you could use paste in back. So what were we doing? I lost my train of thought. Oh, the sharper highlights. So if I grab my pen tool here and now I've got a stroke applied, I can click and I can follow the edge of this tree here, and that's going to give me a path. So if I zoom in, what I want to do is I want to go into the stroke panel here, and I want to bump this up a bit. We're going to do probably pretty large, like 20, and then I'm going to use a stroke width profile, and I'm going to make it a tapered line. And then we can just drag these anchor handles using the direct selection to kind of modify that. So now we've got a really sharp highlight right on the edge of our tree here. So this is looking good. We're pretty happy with the way that it looks. Kevin in our live chat is asking, in front meaning the topmost shape on the current layer, it means it will paste it in front of whatever you have selected, or if you don't have anything selected, the layer that you're on. So I'm going to just show you one more thing with the artwork now that we've got it all kind of, we're happy with this, we like the way it looks, we think it's coming along in terms of the shading, but maybe we want to change the way that the colors look. Maybe we want to create a version of this artwork that we can share for like the fall. There's two different ways we can do this. One, we got our swatches here, so we can change our colors using the swatches the same way that we kind of changed them in the beginning. So if I double click on this green, and I will actually move this out of the way so you can see, I'm going to close my Pathfinder, move my layers out. If I double click on this green, I can go back into that hue saturation brightness mode, and I can adjust this with the preview turned on. And you can see that as I'm adjusting it, because we used tints of those swatches, it's really, really easy to just change the colors. So we can change our scene to have a like fall look to it instead of being a, you know, maybe like a summery tree. So the other thing that I want to show you is we can select everything on our artboard, everything on our layer here, our fills layer, and we can go up and we can choose Edit Colors, Recolor Artwork. And this brings up this window, and this is another way that you can kind of change your colors very easily in your artwork by using that similar view that we had on Adobe Color. So if I slide this over, you can see that we can change our colors, and it's keeping constrained that sort of complementary color that we are working with. So if we slide this over, we can get more of those oranges. I can unlink this and I can drag this, and that lets me move these independently to get more more of a spooky kind of vibe going. So once we're satisfied with this and we like the way that it looks and we're ready to share it to our Discord, we can go over to, you can find the link to our Creative Cloud communities in the description of this video, and then you can hop over to our Discord here, and you can check out what everybody's been working on. People have been doing the isometric challenge, which has been super fun. The coloring, I love that. I can't wait. Umar, I cannot wait to see this colored because I think it's going to look awesome. We've got this awesome, Rick has been doing like not just one state, but like every single state. It's been super cool to see all of your work. So be sure to share your work, and we've got tons of mentors in the chat to give you feedback on your work. It's a great place, a very friendly community. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining me today for this Illustrator illustration challenge, a bit of a tongue twister. We went over shading and color using live paint, drawing shapes, and using the Pathfinder to create areas of shadow and highlight. We are live every day here on Behance, be.net/Adobe Live at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, and be sure to stay tuned for more live content right after me.